Welcome everybody, and happy RJ Week. Got a special guest this time, and I'm extremely happy that Margaret was able to join us and start the Restorative Justice Week, International Restorative Justice Week, with her story. And since Restorative Justice Week this year, we chose the theme of young people. And for Restorative Justice for All, the approach that we take for restorative justice, and I know Margaret is very passionate about that too, is an evidence-based approach which allows us to proceed with restorative justice in a safe way for all parties involved. So our theme for this year is evidence-based restorative justice for young people. And Margaret has an amazing story which started a long time ago. And I think it will resonate with a lot of people who watch our webinars. So this webinar is an episode of many RJ webinars that came before this one. And they cover issues around restorative justice, from hate crime to youth violence to sexual abuse. And they're all available online. That you can download them for free from YouTube. They're also on podcasts. Because we want to stand for what the label says, with restorative justice for all, and make it accessible to everybody. So yeah, just over to you, Mark. Just say a little bit about you, who you are, and then obviously if you could share your story and how you came to restorative justice.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Theo. I am currently in Canada, but I was born in Guyana, South America, and my family came to Canada in 1969 for a safer and better life, my parents for their children. And 9 years after being here, my father was murdered in a robbery, an armored car robbery, and he was not an armored car. He was not a guard. He was in at work on his day off. He went in on an Easter Monday, and he used to take Mondays off so he could take his parents and parents-in-law, my grandparents, to appointments and stuff. But he went in just to get ready for a sale, and 3 men had planned a robbery, and Dad got in the way, and he was shot in his back and shot in his heart, and he was the age of 40, and he was dead. I was 16. Mommy was 36. My older sister, 18. My little sister was 10, and my brother was 5. So yeah, from that age until now, here I am in this journey of justice.
And I think restorative justice is all about personal communication, is relational, is storytelling. And I know you have been very brave sharing your story in different ways through your book, which we will put online for people to access. As somebody who was 16 and experienced violence in that way and loss, and then your journey with storytelling and restorative justice, which I guess is the hope that comes with what comes after violence, isn't it? Because it's just what you do with violence. So yeah, I just want us to talk us through what you went through. You can.
Absolutely. Well, there is this thing that I have learned over the years. I have become very conscious of it. It was happening during the whole process from Daddy being murdered, March 27, 1978, until now, and it's that we never do any of these things alone. And through the entire process, so number one, I was always writing even before my father was murdered. I used to write. I used to poetry, kept little journals and diaries. So that's number one. And then number two is when my father was killed, I was at an all-girls Catholic high school called Notre Dame in Toronto. And the high school principal, Sister Lucille Corrigan, almost from day one, and she was, a strict principal at a private school, but she supported me almost from day one because I was actually struggling quite a bit. I was pretty good at school, but after my dad was murdered, my marks went down, and my focus was, it was, let's just say it this way. But so that's number one, lots of support through the entire process. And so writing has always been part of this journey with me. There is a saying that I really, really love, and it says, "What you seek is seeking you." And even though I didn't know that, lots of years ago, I think that seeking to survive, first of all, was crucial for me. And over the years, I recognized, well, I wanted to thrive. And so the writing informed 30 years after one of the murderers, it was three people that murdered Daddy, 30 years after the one who put the bullet in my father's heart, he read about an award I received for one of the books I published. And that book is a therapeutic writing book using poetry for healing. And I'm a member of the National Association for Poetry Therapy. He read about that award and emailed me 30 years after he murdered my father. And I chose to meet that person. So that was a number of years ago, but there's something about the support, there's something about the language, about the writing, and about trusting heart and instinct. As I've gotten older, I recognize there are lots of things I was doing that I didn't actually have language for. I think I have it. I do have it now. I know I have it now. I'll be 64 December 20. I know I have it. That is arrogance. That's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. So that's, yeah. I'm trying to be cognizant of time and content and context because I've been living with this for almost 50 years, and there has been a lot of pain. There has been a lot of struggle. I think that's just the human condition, and we don't do it alone. We don't do it alone, ever, ever, ever.
And that's such an important thing to say to other people who have experienced loss, but also any type of harm, I guess. And I think what,
Absolutely.
at least in my view, what restorative justice, well, biggest contribution, I would say, is that it calls people to come together, to listen to each other, to not feel alone, and to enter into a process of dialogue. And just going back to just focusing a bit more on the actual meeting of this person who took away your dad in an early stage of your life. What I guess my question, and I know obviously I've read your work, so I know it's, but for the sake of the webinars, is if you just
Sure.
highlight, kind of the feelings that you experienced during that time, and then what gave you after that, and years later, what did you take from that, and what do you think is the most important thing that both in terms of good and bad for other people to be aware of if they are go down that route?
Sure. Well, it's really interesting because it looks as if we didn't do anything formal. So we didn't necessarily fill out any forms. We didn't go into mediation. We didn't sit in a room with anyone. But all of the groundwork had to be done. So he is a lifer, okay? And a lifer means you're always connected to the criminal justice system. So there was no way that we could meet each other unless the government, his parole officers on every level knew. So we did meet, and I said, because with my father being murdered, it was a high profile occurrence, not because we were fancy people or anything like that. It was the amount of money and the way that it was done. So, the randomness that is life. At any rate, when I told him I wanted to meet him, and we did meet. At that time, I was living in Alberta, and he was in British Columbia, and we did meet. And here's the thing. I had read a little bit about what he did after, and during, etc. So I already had a sense that it would be satisfying for me. I didn't forgive him. He wasn't expecting forgiveness. I don't actually believe in forgiveness, by which I will say, the idea of I have so much power that I could forgive you. I know people do it. Please understand that. But for me, I see it as a power thing. So I can forgive you, Theo, because you've harmed me. It's not my language. And for someone to wait for that, I've been to many prisons, as you know, and I've spent lots of time with people, with victims, offenders, and often there's a crossover. But to wait for someone to say, I forgive you, that means you've put your life on hold. And I don't think we ever need to do that. So when we knew that, even, and he shared the same thing, that this thing, the thing that we did share is something, and this is the language that my grandchildren understand. It's tattooed on my body. It is called Sawbonna. So it's an award-winning new model of restorative justice, and if you Google it, you could find it. The Government of Canada commissioned me to write a paper about it, about victim-led restorative justice, if you will. But what we shared was what I call Sawbonna, the fact that we're in shared humanity. So meeting him, as I said, I had researched him. I felt that I believed in my heart already that it would be something that would be positive to my life. So it was really powerful when we met. It was one-on-one. I mean, his wife drove him, he and his wife drove together, and it was just the two of us. And we spoke and cried. And the main, the question I really wanted answered, it's really funny, but what were my dad's last words? And what was he like? I mean, at that moment. So it was profound, a bit unique in the fact of the manner in which it was done. But as I said, some folks, it could look like nothing was done, but we did it in a particular way that got two humans together. And it was poignant. It continues to be poignant in my life.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I just I connected in my head what I've been struggling with. I like philosophy and kind of trying to find not just the practice of restorative justice, but what's behind it in terms of kind of the justification for certain things that we do in practice. And I know very well, I mean, you said we cried. So if meetings and restorative justice is done properly, it does cause emotions, deep emotions, and that is the whole purpose. But also pain, what I call restorative justice pain, which can be cathartic and cleanse and change. And in those claims that I was making, and obviously the practices that I facilitated and observed, I saw what you just described, and was this feeling that those people that were in that room or were having those conversations, you and I, we are already connected. We have this, what I call the social liaison that brings us together, whether we know each other or not. And it's there. And what are we trying to do is to repair that broken. Those people that were in that room or were having those conversations, you and I, we are already connected. We have this, what I call the social liaison that brings us together, whether we know each other or not. And it's there. And what are we trying to do is to repair that broken. Those people that were in that room or were having those conversations, you and I, we are already connected. We have this, what I call the social liaison that brings us together, whether we know each other or not. And it's there. And what our connection that we have is, and also strengthen it if it's there. And in doing so, it justifies the pain that we are inflicting or self-inflicting. Because I was asking myself, how do we justify that pain? What is the purpose of this pain? What is the purpose of the tears? What are we trying to? And then it kind of hit me. It's because we are connected and we're trying to fix that. It's by default, we are connected. Our human nature connects us. And we're here to fix that. And focusing on that takes us away from the you did this, you are a bad person, or what the criminal justice system, if you like, focuses on, which is to put blame. And on this occasion, it just shifts the focus from the blame to the connection that we have, focusing us on fixing it, as opposed to name calling or even forgiving, as you said. Is that the purpose? Because sometimes you never want to forgive, or you might actually don't want to hear forgiveness, or it's just completely irrelevant in the why we're coming together.
Well, it's interesting because the reason I use and practice Sawbonna, and I teach at Centennial College in Toronto. I was invited to teach a number of years ago a course called Global Citizenship. And the reason for that was because of my work, my vocation, my books, my writing, and everything within the context of justice as a lived experience. And it's compelling because I say to my students, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I do not expect all of my students to like me. I don't expect that I'm going to like them. That's just a given. We humans do not do that. So even within the context of having, if you have a mediated setup, you think that you'll get together, it is not imperative to like. What is imperative is to recognize the shared humanity. And I know I have spent time with Desmond Tutu when I went to Pollsmoor Prison. I went there a couple of times, and the first time I went, Arch, he asked me to call him Arch. We had a coffee together and a beautiful conversation. And there are two things that stay with me from that conversation with that beautiful man. He said to me, he said, Margot, remember, I did my walk my way, you do your walk your way. And that's number one. But the other thing that really floors me is I said to him, how did you keep your faith in humanity, your faith through all of the brutality that you and Madiba and Nelson Mandela, all of this country, He said, I didn't. So this is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He said, Margot, I did not. He said, my friends, my family, my community, and for him, of course, his faith. He said, that's how it was done. And for me, that is a really, really significant thing, because one of the articulations of restorative justice, the paper that the government commissioned me to write a couple of years ago, they said, if restorative justice is so great, why is it not more widely accepted? And I gave some of the reasons, which was that there tends to be an expectation around it of forgiveness, and now we're all happy, and we're hugging up and loving each other. What you said just now, my undergrad is in philosophy as well, Theo, and I've got a couple of masters, and they're always focused on philosophy. But the bottom line is sometimes there's a sense of like, we have to. So my response, the nutshell of my paper that I wrote for the government, I said, because there are too many expectations, we're supposed to do that. We're all of a sudden supposed to be absolved. We're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be nice. And life is just going to unfold. Sawbonna says we're humans. We're in shared humanity. You know what you did. I know what you did. You matter as much as I matter. Like that, to me, that's what I also hear you speaking about, and your relationship to restorative justice. We're connected. And when I teach my course, Global Citizenship, my students know by the time they leave, they're going to say Sawbonna, because I tell them the only way I can teach this course is if I'm teaching it within the crucible of shared humanity. And of course, my colleagues, and they all know that that's what I do. So that is, I think it's very, very, very liberating to recognize we don't all of a sudden become absolved and groovy people and like we're so special and we're saints and we're demons. We're humans. The only thing we know is that we're here and we matter. And I would suggest, being as kind as we can and receiving it back. This is good. And to ourselves first, if we have to be. Like, I mean, not if we must be kind to ourselves first, because that means then we can offer it. It's a practice. It's a practice.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think probably that we could claim is at the heart of human rights, because if you acknowledge that we all share the same humanity, we are connected, then by default that creates rights, human rights,
Yes.
but also obligations,
Obligations.
because if I'm acknowledging that we are connected, then I must respect you in the same way that you're expecting to respect me. And the values that I keep saying that should be at the core of restorative justice practice, which is power sharing, equality, dignity, respect, and involvement in decision making. And if those are the guiding values, then if forgiveness comes up, if all of the other things come up, is what Braithwaite calls as gifts of restorative justice. But gifts are not expected. Gifts are given, and they are byproducts. They're not the focus. They are consequences that we choose to give to each other. Is there are additionals, but not expectations. So yeah, that's where I kind of, when you were talking, I kind of connected. And the other thing that you said about hope and about also losing hope, because we all lose hope. We have good days and bad days. And then just moving on to the kind of young people part of our conversation, because when I think about young people, all I think about is hope. And I feel a bit guilty for my generation and the generations before in terms of what we are passing on. And here we are, I mean, among, very, different wars happening, with here in Europe, with Ukraine and Russia, the war, we've got Gaza next door, we've got all sorts of conflicts in Syria and Afghanistan, and, very politically an intense situation going on with narratives of hate being normalized, even from the top. And it makes me quite uncomfortable in terms of what messages we're sending out there to our children. And also because I hear people like my son feeling a little bit, kind of defeatist almost, this is just not good enough. So what do we do, having just said, and the pain that you experience, but also the healing that you can also get from that pain, and just putting that in context in terms of what is our obligations as people working in the healing community, in the restorative justice community, in the hope community, if you like, if there is such a thing, to send the message out there during Restorative Justice Week?
It's a brilliant, brilliant question, Theo. And I have to tell you this. I think there are two things that are really significant. Number one is to practice what we preach and teach, which is work. So it's not that, oh my God, like, to me, it's being kind to ourselves and actually walking. I mean, I really do live the value of Sawbonna. I don't like everybody. Everyone does not like me. That does not harm me. My hope is that I do like Margot, and I hope that individuals feel that they are worthy because they are, number one. The second thing that I think is really, really significant, and it's a saying, again, I learned this a long, long time ago, and I was really struggling because when I published my first book, I put them on a particular shelf for sale at a conference that was going on, and the organizers moved them, and I was really annoyed. And one of the very elderly people there, she just died recently. I think she was 101. She said, Margot, here's the thing. If you want to know where life wants you to be, look at your feet. Look at your feet. The reason I say that, Theo, and my students, they are college age students, but trust me, I mean, I'm older than them, and I feel I love my age. I love the opportunity to give back, okay? So I say that by way of saying to, I've got my 4 grandchildren, and I just say, where you are, do what you can do where you are and how you
Mm.
can do it. Because I know, again, when I was a teenager, particularly, of course, after Dad's death, and for even in my 20s and 30s, I would really, let guilt and shame and anger and anguish overtake me because I was thinking about all of the troubles of the world and what was done to us. And then I started to recognize, what can you do where you are? And I say this to my students, they're really important in my life. I say to them, look, you matter, you,
Mm.
and I think starting with that articulation, that language for young people like your son and my grandchildren, you know, and I say it to myself as well. And I think it's some of the toughest and the most important work we do is to look at our feet. This is where we are. Recognize we're in relationships of what Martin Buber called I and thou, not us and
Mm.
them, not, over there and over there. It's we are I and thou. And no matter the age that we are interconnected.
Mm.
And I matter, Theo, you matter. Look at where we are. Because again, I know young people in particular, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to that age, but I think I was that age. My Uncle Jer, who was kind of like my surrogate dad, Uncle Jer was that age. We were all like, big radical, which is fine. Practice not being overwhelmed by it. Practice just
Mm.
really centering and saying, listen, it's mad. Yeah, it's a mad, mad world. And guess what? I just keep walking and doing what I could do in the moment, in this now of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And Sawbonna offers that because we're in shared humanity. I literally had it tattooed on my body because I wanted to use a language and a way that my grandkids would be interested. So if I were to sit down and talk to them about Grandpa Theodore being murdered, which on Easter Monday, my second eldest grandchild, Hannah, she knocked on my door here. And it was like Easter Monday, so Daddy was murdered on March 27th, which was an Easter Monday. Well, Han came over because I had fake nails for her, and we talked about it. And then she started to ask me questions.
Mm.
There was a context and a
Mm.
conversation. It lasted 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. She got her fake nails and she
Mm.
and her best. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just something powerful. And when I got Sawbonna tattooed on my body, my eldest grandkids, I don't text with them all the time because you don't want them to get sick of you. You don't want to get sick of them either. But the second I said I got a tattoo, the 2 oldest ones texted me like right away.
Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, and then I showed them
And
what it was, of course. Yeah, that's their language,
yeah,
tattoos.
and then that again, I think is a perfect practical example of the key value of dialogue and restorative justice, which is power sharing. We're expecting young people to speak our language. Why don't we try and speak their language? That's power sharing,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, 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 yes.
So
I've got to,
I think we
I'm
all
gonna,
have to learn. Yeah.
okay, I've got to show, this is because I'm excited now. Like, I mean, I am excited, but I just love that. I got another one. And the reason I got this is because snake and serpent, like for them, it's like cool and groovy and all this, like, especially my granddaughters, they're like, and even my daughters, they said, what? You know, that's the language they want to know. That's
Mm.
that that's
Mm-hmm.
transformation. That's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
restoration. That is
Mm-hmm.
community. That is voice. That little thing is boundaries. Shh, I've got boundaries. No, 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 no. You can't overstep them. We're still in shared humanity.
Yes.
So yeah, that was Sawbonna was very interesting, but the snake, I mean, we're speaking their language.
We're
Yes,
speaking their
because
language.
and
Yes, absolutely.
listening to what they need to hear, listening to them say, look, bring it on. Yeah, I love
But
that.
that's
Thank you, Theo.
such an important message to send out there, as we claim to be more knowledgeable, as we claim to be more wise, and here we are surrendering a world that is not that great. So I think we should.
I disagree. I am going to jump in. I'm going to jump in. I disagree.
Please,
Yeah,
please.
I do
And I'm
disagree.
saying it. I'm saying it to challenge you to disagree,
Oh,
because
no, I disagree. I
it's
disagree
my
profoundly.
what do you call it? The Socrates way of getting the truth is the Socrates way of
Oh,
extraction.
of
You
course,
say
that's my you don't
the
know.
opposite, so that you can trigger you
That's
can
my
trigger the
favorite.
reaction.
That's my favorite philosopher. My wonderful dog years ago was called Socrates. That's my
Bless.
favorite philosopher. Absolutely. Oh my God, in
Please
the
go ahead.
Agora. Okay, this is the reason I disagree, Theo, because look at this conversation we're having right now. Like in a minute, we could be doing a million other. No, the world is always problematic because they are humans. We're here. We have different ideology. We have different lived
Yeah.
experience. We are connected to particular systems. All right. So to me, nothing is,
Hmm.
I don't see anything that's changed if you want to know the truth. The truth to me is there are always issues. There are always problems. And
Hmm.
at the very same time, there are folks that we connect with to make a difference. And we're not going to change. Years ago, when I wrote
Hmm.
and published my first book, I wanted to do the therapeutic writing at a call center. I'll just let you know, which especially back in the day, they were really strict and like automatons. And I knew that. Anyway, the bottom line is a woman that I was friends with, she said to me, Margot, do not preach to the unconverted.
Mm.
I
Hmm.
thought that was very significant because let's put it this way. If you and I run around and try to, you know, convince folks who think we're mad because we believe in restorative justice and we believe in shared humanity and we believe in Sawbonna, if we run around doing that, then we're kind of spinning our wheels. But if people watch us doing it, then that might have an impact. And it's been
Hmm.
going on for generations. In one
Hmm.
of Nelson Mandela's last interviews, someone said to him, what's going to happen after you die? Madiba,
Hmm.
he said, there will always be freedom fighters. We're not going anywhere.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
is it is a it's a parallel. Look at the
Hmm.
good stuff that happens. And remember, based on ideology, what I might think is really groovy, like you do, RJ Sawbonna, somebody else will say, you're nuts. We
Hmm.
know people will say you're nuts because I'm sure you've had it said to you, and I've had it.
Oh
I don't
yes, a
know.
few
Yeah,
times.
yeah, I don't worry. I'm like, that's what they're saying, and they're allowed to say that. Just keep the guns in your pockets, please.
Yeah.
That's but yeah, so that's
Yeah,
why I
no,
disagree
no,
with you.
no. Thank you for disagreeing, and I pushed you a couple of times until please disagree. But no, I'm proud of my
Bring
madness,
it.
and I'm sure you're proud of yours. And I'm going to connect it with another word that you said before, radicalisation. Radicalisation, especially in youth, is such an important quality. It's violent radicalisation that we should be
Yes,
condemning. Radicalised actions by human rights campaigners, by peace builders, by
yes,
young people is what changes the world, is what makes us a better place, is what liberated colonies, is what liberated states. And I don't think we should
yes,
be afraid of it. In fact, I would encourage it. Is violence that we should be condemning, but also
exactly,
sharing,
exactly.
yeah, sharing that power that we have as older or as more powerful or as whatever our status gives us, to those who have the ideas to be radical, to change things. And young people's ideas are so, I mean, the imagination and the creativity and the talent that is out there just
Yes,
inspires me, really truly inspires me. And I would just wrap up with the symbol of the snake that you showed and you shared, which, by the way, just gonna wrap up with a very funny story. Another weird coincidence, right? And you will see that I organize what we call International Symposium on Restorative Justice, and I
yes,
do this. We used to do it every 2 3 years. We did one in June, And several people came from around the world, and we were in Cyprus this time, which is a divided island. And all these people came together. And on the first day, we met at an ancient castle, because this symposium is what we call International Symposium on Restorative Justice. And I do this, takes place in ancient places and all that. And I'll put details on the website in this webinar for the next one. We definitely need you there. The story goes like this. So we were in this ancient castle. We were just about to start the 2 weeks of building relationships and meeting each other and talking about peace building. And Margot, this massive snake appeared. Obviously, people freaked out. So it's like, guys, if you don't attack the snake, it would not attack you. Just calm down. So I said, guys, this is a symbol. This is a sign of transformation and of new beginnings, right? Of new beginnings. So I will say that you mentioned this now to say that I see this as part of our own journey for transformation, which I know both you and I, with our stories, we try to, become, take this journey of life, transform, and take as many people with us. Last words for you now, just to wrap up. And again, thank you very much, Margot.
I will wrap up by saying the synchronicities that we have shared are mind-blowing, heart-exploding, and the last word that I always like to leave my talks and keynotes, and my students now meet me down the hall, even folks that have graduated, Sawbonna, Sawbonna. We are in shared humanity. We matter. We matter personally, professionally, politically. We matter. Sawbonna.
Sawbonna, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo.